my fiancée canceled our wedding via text. I replied, my condolences. Then I forwarded her text to her parents, who paid for everything. An hour later, her dad was urgently calling me. I, 32 male, am, or rather was, engaged to Jessica, 30. Our wedding was scheduled for 2 weeks from today, on October 18th. The venue was booked, a stunning historical building that cost a small fortune. The caterer was confirmed, the flowers were ordered. Her dress, a custom-made confection of lace, and what I now understand was pure entitlement, was paid for and awaiting its debut. And the financiers of this grand production? Her parents, Richard and Susan Vance. Richard, in particular, was immensely proud of the affair, treating it less like a wedding and more like a corporate merger where he was acquiring a son-in-law he deemed stable. This morning at 9:17 a.m., while I was trying to focus on a spreadsheet, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessica. Hey, I can't do this. I'm not in a place to get married right now. My heart isn't in it, and I need to follow my truth. I'm really sorry. I read the text once, then twice. A wave of nausea rolled through me, and the numbers on my screen blurred into meaningless squiggles. For a full minute, I just sat there, my hand trembling slightly as I held the phone. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. 4 years, a 1-year engagement, countless hours of mind-numbing planning, all detonated by a 33-word text. Then the initial shock receded and something else took its place. It wasn't pain, not yet. It was a strange, cold clarity. It was the feeling you get when you finally solve a complex puzzle and see the whole ugly picture. All the little weirdnesses of the past few months. The late nights she claimed were with friends, the sudden intense friendship with a wellness guru named Joseph, the way she'd angle her phone away from me, they all snapped into a perfect, horrifying alignment. My fingers felt clumsy, but they moved. I thought about typing 1,000 things, a torrent of anger and questions. But what was the point? She hadn't given me the respect of a conversation. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a meltdown. A flash of dark, morbid humor struck me. I typed back 2 words. Me. My condolences. It felt right. It was for the death of our relationship, for the person I thought she was, for the future that had just been executed. Then, with a steadiness that surprised me, I took a screenshot of her text. I opened my email, attached the image, and sent it to Richard and Susan Vance. The subject line was simple, regarding the wedding. I added no commentary. The text was its own testament. I put my phone on silent and shoved it in my desk drawer. I couldn't look at it. I spent the next hour pretending to work, my mind a blank, roaring void. The chaos was coming, but I had simply rerouted the storm to its source. When I finally pulled my phone out an hour later, it was a war zone. 12 missed calls from Jessica, 7 from Susan, and 1, the most recent one, from Richard. His contact photo, a picture of him on his boat looking smug, stared back at me. The notification simply read, Richard Vance, urgent call requested. I took a deep breath, let it out slowly, and knew I had to wait. I couldn't take that call in my office. I needed to be on my own ground before facing the man who cared more about his deposits than my dignity. Update 1 3 days later. Thank you for the comments and DMs. It's validating to know I'm not crazy. Many of you asked about the call with Richard. I waited until I was home that evening, after giving myself hours to let the adrenaline subside and think clearly. I needed every ounce of composure I could muster. I poured a whiskey and hit dial. He picked up before the first ring finished. Thomas, he barked. It wasn't a greeting, it was an accusation. Richard, I replied, my voice steady. I got your email. What the hell is this? Is this some kind of joke? I wish it were, I said calmly. I received that text from Jessica at 9:17 a.m. That's the entirety of what I know. There was a muffled sound, and then Susan's piercing voice came through the speaker. Thomas, darling? What is he talking about? Jessica said you two had a little tiff. She's just got cold feet. All brides get it. You're the steady one, Thomas. You need to fix this. You need to fix this. The phrase echoed in my head. The sheer audacity of it. I, the recipient of the breakup text, was now tasked with being the emotional janitor for their social catastrophe. Susan, I said, a distinct chill entering my tone. A tiff is an argument over where to get dinner. This was a termination. Your daughter ended our engagement. There is nothing for me to fix. Richard cut back in, his voice a low growl of controlled fury. "We have over $150,000 sunk into this event, Thomas. $150,000. The venue is non-refundable. The caterer has a cancellation clause that will gut us. This is not a cold feet situation we can just brush off." The conversation orbited entirely around the money, the contracts, the social embarrassment. Not one "are you okay?" Not a shred of sympathy. I was just a faulty component in their elaborate machine. "That sounds like a conversation you need to have with your daughter," I stated. "She's the one who breached the agreement with me, and by extension, with you." Before they could unload another volley of blame, my other line beeped. It was Jessica. A wave of anger, hot and sharp, finally pierced my calm. I said, "I have to go," and hung up on the Vances. I stared at Jessica's name on the screen and hit ignore. So hard I thought the glass might crack. A moment later, the text started. "You told my parents? You went behind my back and tried to turn them against me. You know how my dad is. This is exactly why I couldn't marry you. You're so manipulative and vindictive. You need to call them right now and tell them you overreacted and we're working through it. My dad is threatening to cut me off. This is your fault." It was breathtaking. The complete and total abdication of responsibility. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into my home office. On the corner of my desk was a heavy, polished wooden box. Inside, nestled in velvet, was the custom-made chronograph watch I had bought for Richard. It was a beautiful piece, subtly engraved on the back. "Richard, thank you for welcoming me into the family. Thomas. October 18, 2025. The wedding date. Our wedding date." I closed the box. I felt the first real pang of grief, not for the Jessica who sent that text, but for the woman I thought I was marrying, for the family I thought I was joining, for the future that was now just a ghost. I spent the next few days in a fog, methodically canceling my arrangements, informing my family, and trying to keep my head above water. The real trouble, I would soon find out, was just beginning. Update 2. The past week has been an education in audacity. The Vances, having failed to guilt me into fixing their problem, moved on to asset recovery. I received an email from Susan stating that since the wedding was off, I was morally and legally obligated to return Jessica's engagement ring. She helpfully suggested it could help offset some of the catastrophic losses they were incurring. They wanted me to return the $22,000 ring I paid for so they could pawn it. I replied with a link to our state's laws on conditional gifts and a simple message: "The ring is my property. Consider the matter closed." Of course, they didn't. Jessica began a smear campaign. I started getting tentative calls from mutual friends. The story she was spinning was that I had become controlling and emotionally distant, that I was suffocating her. Joseph, the guru, was now the heroic friend who helped her find the strength to leave. I wanted to scream, but instead, I consulted a lawyer, not for a lawsuit, but for strategy. I explained the whole situation, the text, the money, the lease on our apartment, which is primarily in her name, and the smear campaign. His advice was grim but empowering. "You're in a war," he said. "The goal isn't to win, it's to extract yourself with the least possible damage. Document everything. Communicate only in writing. And protect your assets." Armed with this, I handled the friends issue. In a group chat for a now-canceled wedding event, I posted a simple message. "Hey everyone, I'm sure you've heard the wedding is off. Just to be clear, Jessica ended our engagement last week. It's been a difficult time, and I'm focusing on the logistics of separating our lives. I wish her the best." It was neutral but factual. It corrected the record without being dramatic. The private messages I got afterward confirmed it was the right move. The Vances and Jessica's stories were already starting to contradict each other. The real test came this morning. My doorbell rang. It was Jessica and Joseph. He was exactly as I'd pictured. Tan, perfect teeth, and the vacant eyes of someone who uses the word synergy without irony. "I need to get my things," she said, not looking at me. I stepped aside. Jessica walked in and started pointing at our shared life. The TV, the espresso machine, the leather sofa. For each, she'd say, "I helped pick that out," or "My mom gave us money for that." I just stood there, arms crossed. I paid for the TV. The espresso machine was a gift to me from my brother. Your mom gave us $500 for the sofa. You can have it if you give me the $2,500 I paid for the rest of it. Her face tightened. The lifestyle she enjoyed, she was realizing, was one I had financed. Then her eyes landed on the watch box on my desk. "Oh, good," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You were going to give that to Dad. I'll take it to him. It might smooth things over." She reached for it. I moved faster, my hand covering the box. "No." The word hung in the air. "What do you mean, no?" she scoffed. "I bought that for my father-in-law," I said, my voice low and hard. "I don't have one of those anymore. You made sure of that?" The condition for the gift was not met. Joseph stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "Hey man, don't be a jerk. It's a watch." I turned to him. "You're right, it is, and it's mine. Jessica, get your clothes and your personal items, nothing else. You have 1 hour." The shock on her face was profound. She had mistaken my patience for weakness. They grabbed a few boxes and left. But the biggest fight was yet to come, and it was about the one thing she couldn't pack in a box: the apartment lease. Update 3. The aftermath of their visit was tense. I knew I had to get her off the lease. Following my lawyer's advice, I sent a formal notice via certified mail and email. It stated she had 30 days to coordinate the removal of her remaining belongings and sign the lease transfer paperwork. It was a standard, legally sound procedure. I expected a fight. I didn't expect the power to go out. A week after I sent the letter, my apartment went dark. My internet died. I checked the utility company website. The account, under the name Jessica Vance, was past due and had been disconnected. In her dramatic exit, she had forgotten to pay the bills that were solely in her name. I felt a surge of fury, followed by a grim sense of satisfaction. This was a consequence of her own making. The next day, I called the power company to set up a new account. The agent informed me that because there was an outstanding balance tied to the unit, I would either have to pay it off to get service immediately, or go through a lengthy process of proving new tenancy that could take weeks. I was trapped. I needed to work. With a curse, I paid the $480 she owed. I paid her debt to keep my lights on. I sent a screenshot of the receipt to her and Susan with the subject "Final Utilities" and immediately blocked them both. The real confrontation happened last Friday. My doorman, Charles, called me. "Thomas, Jessica is down here. She's saying she's a resident and is demanding access to her apartment. Her key fob isn't working." My lawyer had told me to have the fob deactivated after she was given formal notice. "Is she with anyone?" I asked. "The tan guy," Charles said. "He's kind of pacing around like a jerk." "Okay, Charles, don't let her up. Tell her she needs to coordinate a time with me in writing as per the legal notice. If she refuses to leave the lobby, please call the police." I hung up, my heart pounding. This was it. I grabbed the file with a copy of the lease and the certified mail receipt and went downstairs. The scene was worse than I imagined. Jessica was yelling at Charles. Joseph was, predictably, filming it with his phone. "There he is," she shrieked. Tell him he can't lock me out." As if on cue, 2 police officers walked in. Jessica immediately turned her performance on them. "Thank God. He's illegally evicted me. He cut off my power and he's holding my things hostage." When she was done, one of the officers, a tired-looking man who had clearly seen it all, looked at me. "Sir, what's going on?" I didn't open with my evidence. I just looked at Jessica. "Jessica, you left. You abandoned the apartment. I sent you a legal notice to arrange a time to get your things. You haven't. Instead, you show up and cause a scene." To the officer, I said, "This is a civil dispute. She is the primary on the lease, but she has moved out. I have given her formal notice to collect her property. She's refusing to follow the procedure." I held up the folder. "I have all the documentation." The officer sighed, not even looking at my folder. "Ma'am, is it true you are no longer living here?" Well, I'm staying with a friend. He forced me out," she sputtered. "Okay," the officer said, his patience gone. "This is a civil matter. We don't get involved in lease disputes, but what you're doing right now is causing a disturbance. You need to leave the property. You can take him to court if you want, but you can't stand here and scream at people. Leave now, or you can be cited for disorderly conduct." The defeat on her face was absolute. It wasn't a clean victory for me, just a messy, public airing of our drama. But it was enough. Joseph had stopped filming. They turned and left. As I walked back to the elevator, Charles gave me a sympathetic nod. "Sorry, man." "It's not your fault, Charles," I said. "Thanks for handling it." The battle was over, but the war wasn't. She still had to get her things, and I had a feeling the final act was going to be pathetic. Final update. It's been a while. The 30-day clock ran out. On the final day, I got a terse email from a lawyer she had clearly scraped together the money to hire. It arranged a time for her to retrieve her personal effects and included a signed copy of the lease transfer she had folded. The moving day was a sad, quiet affair. No Joseph. Just Jessica and 2 movers. She wouldn't look at me. She just walked through the apartment, pointing at the boxes I had neatly packed, her face a mask of stone-cold resentment. The whole thing took less than an hour. As the movers carried out a hideous floor lamp she loved, its cord snagged and the ceramic base cracked. Jessica flinched, and a small, almost inaudible sound escaped her lips. It was the only emotion she showed, and then she was gone. The silence that followed was the cleanest sound I've ever heard. The story doesn't end there, but I've had to piece together the rest of it from fragments. There was no single source, no satisfying intelligence report. Life isn't that neat. I heard from a mutual friend who works in event planning that Richard Vance had gone on a rampage, calling every vendor, threatening lawsuits and bad reviews. But contracts are contracts. The friend estimated their losses were well into 6 figures. The primary loss, though, wasn't financial. It was the humiliation. I ran into another old friend at the grocery store. It was awkward. But after a few minutes, she hesitantly told me that Jessica and Joseph had a massive, public breakup. The rumor was that once her father's financial support was cut, Joseph's interest in her vibrational energy plummeted. He was gone within a month. The final piece came from a venomous email Susan sent me after I forwarded the final paid-off utility bill. It was a rambling, blame-filled tirade that, between the lines, painted a picture of a family in turmoil. A furious husband, a distraught daughter, and her in the middle, blaming me for the entire disaster. As for me, I'm doing okay. The first month was about anger and logistics. The second was about processing the grief. Not for Jessica, but for the lie I had been living. I grieved for the fool I had been. Some nights, the sheer audacity of her betrayal still hits me, and I feel that old, hot anger. But then I wake up in my quiet apartment, an apartment that is now truly mine, and I feel a profound sense of peace. I sold the engagement ring. I used the money to pay off the last of the wedding-related debts I'd incurred and put the rest away. It felt like closing a bad account. And the watch? The custom chronograph for Richard? It's still in its box, tucked away in my safe. For a while I thought about selling it, but I haven't. It's not a trophy. It's just a reminder. A reminder that my instincts were trying to tell me something for months. A reminder that my calm, methodical response wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. It's a monument to the most expensive bullet I ever dodged. Thank you all for listening. It's time to log off and go live the life that's actually waiting for me.